What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Paco Reacts. Today we are learning about a TikToker named Courtney who is charged with second-degree murder for unaliving her boyfriend. I heard about this. I don't know too much about it, so let's go ahead and find out what's going on. This is a video by Atozy that we are reacting to.
This TikToker is facing life in prison for ending her boyfriend's life, but I guess she's also blowing kisses in court. Welcome back to another episode of what in the world is going on with these darn influencers, because for some reason,
They're spoiled. They've never been held accountable for their actions, and she believes she's going to get away with it. There's no question about it. She's guilty, but she also believes she's going to get away with it.
whole bunch of them just can't act right. So, okay, after sitting in jail for more than 3 years awaiting trial, and after being denied bond, yet again, she shows up to a motions hearing, sticking her tongue out and puckering up at the people in the courtroom. Okay.
Yeah, she's trying to draw sympathy. She's trying to act lighthearted, like she didn't do it, get sympathy, so people are like, oh, she's innocent.
You're charged with second-degree murder. You're about to stand trial this spring. Why are you acting like this? Because if you're claiming self-defense and your entire future depends on a jury believing you were terrified and had no other choice, why are you blowing kisses like this is some sort of like a red carpet event? Like, hello? And also, I know a lot of you guys are probably lost here, but the story starts in April 2022 because police were then called to a luxury apartment building in Miami. And inside the apartment, they found a 27-year-old Christian Toby Obumseli.
Started in April 2022. So she's 4 years this has been going on. Holy crap.
No longer responsive. Courtney here took his life with a knife, and she's claiming self-defense. And Courtney Clemmy, she's a TikToker, Instagram model, and OF girl. And she has millions of followers, and she's known online as Courtney Taylor. But by the time first responders arrived, Toby was bleeding heavily and would later lose his life to those injuries.
In the next room, paramedics are trying to help Christian.
Sit down, sit down, sit down. Do me a favor, sit down. Do not move. Why are you yelling at me? Do not move. Why are you yelling at me? Do not move.
He's yelling at you because you're involved in an active crime scene. Somebody is literally dying in the next room, and he's trying to figure out what's going on, and you're being combative.
Move, sit down.
Okay, oh my god, oh my god.
Courtney is begging to see him, but police explain she cannot go back inside because the apartment is considered a crime scene.
Yeah.
Okay,
I understand that. I understand that.
And if I don't, and y'all can't, then what will I do with I need him. He's like my other half.
And Courtney
You're saying all this, but then you claim you stabbed him in self-defense, which cost him his life. And you're trying to get back into an active crime scene to what? To try to have plausible deniability? Like, oh yeah, my DNA's in there, my fingerprints are all in there. One, I live there. Two, I got back in to try to save them. Like, the first responders are already there. Just shut up, sit down, and let them do their job.
didn't deny what happened. She acknowledged that she ended his life, but said that she was acting in self-defense. She told investigators that
at least she didn't deny it
and thrown her to the floor, then claimed that she grabbed a knife and threw it at him from about 10 feet away. And that's the version of events her defense has stood by. But it's safe to say the medical examiner's stories complicated that story, because the autopsy concluded that Obumseli, he passed away from a forceful downward thrust from a blade that went 3 inches into his chest, which, was piercing a major artery. And investigators
you didn't throw that.
That the fatal wound could not have been caused by a knife thrown from that distance. And
yeah, if you're gonna throw a knife from 10 feet away, depending on the knife, I don't know exactly what knife she used, but it's either going to be with more force and go deeper, or typically, and this is what it usually is, it's usually with less force by the time it hits. So it's not going to go 3 inches and pierce a major artery. Like, don't get me wrong. You know, I know there are people out there who can throw a knife with an immense amount of force, but just from the little bit I seen of her, she looks what, maybe 5'6", 5'7", 130, 140 pounds. Her throwing a knife from 10 feet away is not going to cause that type of injury. Yeah, she definitely had the knife in her hand. She didn't throw it.
That's the detail which has people questioning everything about her story. Because thrown knife versus downward plunge, that's the question. And this has been the biggest point of tension for the entire case. But she wasn't arrested that day or even the next day. In fact, she wasn't taken into custody until 4 months later, in August of 2022. Because then she was arrested in Hawaii at a rehab facility.
They let her go for 4 months? So they let her go for 4 months. She went to Hawaii. She did go to a rehab center in Hawaii. But it was still the fact they let her go for 4 months. It took them that long to figure out what happened. Why wasn't she taken immediately in and questioned?
Facility, and she was then extradited back to Florida to face a charge of second-degree murder. And
They charged her with second-degree murder. They contacted Hawaii. The authorities in Hawaii went over to a rehab center and said, nah, you're coming with us. They yeeted her out of the state and sent her back to Florida.
at the time of her arrest, Miami-Dade State Attorney Catherine Fernandez-Rundle described the incident as coming from a tempestuous and combative relationship that began in November of 2020. And that relationship had already drawn attention long before Toby lost his life, because the couple had previously lived in Austin, Texas, and their relationship that began in November of 2020. And that relationship had already drawn attention long before Toby lost his life, because the couple had previously lived in Austin, Texas. Before Toby lost his life, because the couple had previously lived in Austin, Texas, and there
Of course. All the crazies in Texas. That's what it is. All of the crazy lives in Texas. I mean, hell, just ask Asmongold. He lives in Austin, Texas. He could probably tell you how crazy people are out there.
a former neighbor said that their fights were so frequent and intense that, according to reporting at the time, police were called to their residence multiple times. So after moving to Miami, prosecutors said the violence continued and that their building was even preparing to evict them because of the repeated disturbances.
How bad does it have to get that you're threatened with eviction? I mean, Abumseli previously lived in a penthouse at the Berkshire Riverview in South Austin, where a neighbor who lived below them told Fox 7 Austin that their fights got so bad they quite literally spilled over into his apartment, such as when a tiger painting was thrown onto his 10th floor balcony during a violent dispute. Shit.
Like, do you know how bad the fighting has to be to get evicted over fighting? Then, video surfaces from a trip the couple took to Aspen just months before Toby's life was ended. And in that footage, Courtney can be seen hitting him repeatedly during an argument. I'm unsure how much we can actually show of that footage here, but it looks bad.
You're not going to be able to show anything.
For 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. And now why am I not sober? Because of you.
New video shows model Courtney Clenny hitting then boyfriend.
You could hear her hitting him in the background. Yeah. You can hear her hitting him in the background. There is... No.
Christian Obumseli over a dozen times while on a trip in Aspen, Colorado. This is one of more than 100 pieces of evidence released to the Obumseli family civil attorney as part of the investigation.
In that video, you can see Courtney acting erratically. You can see her hitting Christian multiple times, which unfortunately is consistent with her behavior throughout this entire case.
But her attorney later described the relationship as toxic and said that evidence exists that Obumseli physically abused Courtney on prior occasions and on...
What evidence? Are we going to be able to see that evidence? Is it actually gonna come out and show it? Or is this just them trying to pass the blame off to somebody who is no longer alive and able to defend themselves?
April 3rd, 2022, Courtney was forced to defend herself from Obumseli's physical attack. Well, I mean, it's hard to say because we weren't there and we don't have camera footage of what happened. But to me, it looks like there's also evidence that Courtney did this back to Toby. So, from the beginning, this case has not been simple whatsoever. On one side, you have a woman claiming self-defense in what she describes as an abusive relationship. On the other side, you have forensic evidence that prosecutors argue does not match up to her story. And as this case has moved forward, it's only become more and more complicated because it wasn't just Courtney who ended up facing charges, her parents did as well. Well, that definitely...
They got her parents too? I'm sorry, that's just insane. Not only did they get her, sorry, trying to fix the camera, guys. Not only did they get her, they also got her parents. Holy shit. They went after the whole family. They said this is a whole family affair. We're gonna yeet them all to jail.
Definitely doesn't make her look good. And Kim and Deborah Clenny were taken into custody in Texas on out-of-state felony charges connected to the case. Because according to the arrest warrant affidavit, Kim, Deborah, and Courtney were charged with one count of unauthorized access of a computer system, or electronic device belonging to Christian Obumseli. Because investigators believe that Obumseli's laptop had been taken from the Miami apartment after his passing and accessed without permission. And the Obumseli family's attorneys released a statement saying the Obumseli family is saddened to hear the reports that Courtney's parents illegally took possession of Christian's laptop. And this is yet another...
So they went back into the apartment after his death and they stole his laptop? What did they do with the laptop? Because it said that they were charged with illegally accessing an electronic device. What did they do?
Disturbing reminder of the horrible crimes committed against their family. The Clenny's family's attorney fired back, basically saying that they were saddened to hear her parents were arrested and it was an overstep by the prosecution. They also said, "We believe the Clenny family has been targeted with some trumped up charges to discredit them in the press and make their lives miserable. It stinks of a..."
Hold on. So the prosecution came out and is talking about how they were charged, basically making it a whole family affair. The defense is coming out now and saying that it's an example of a prosecutorial overreach and misconduct. Been targeted with some trumped up charges to discredit them in the press and make their lives miserable. But if the cops had the evidence to charge them, then it's not trumped up charges and there's no way that they're being discredited in the press to make their lives miserable. If they're guilty, they're guilty.
Power play by prosecutors to control the narrative. So now, not only was Courtney facing a murder charge, her parents were facing felony charges tied to alleged computer access. And
take the whole
July
family.
2024, the computer hacking charges were dropped because of a circuit judge ruled that Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office violated attorney-client privilege when investigators seized text messages and emails between Courtney, her parents, and her attorneys. And that doesn't mean that they didn't take the computer, it just means the investigators got a hold of information that was meant to be between Courtney's family and their lawyers. And on the
But if the cops just came into possession of it, like, did they literally go searching for it? Did they take one of their phones and go through their phones for it without any actual probable cause? There's some things that are missing. Like, I don't know if it's Atozi here not giving all the information or if he just doesn't have all the information. I'm more inclined to believe that he just doesn't have all the information. But there's something missing. If the cops had access to their phone, like legally had access to their phone, had a search warrant, everything to go through one of their phones, and they came across the messages, I mean, I could still see why they never should have accessed it. So I do agree with the fact that it should have been thrown out. But it kind of comes into question, how did the cops get this information? Did they come across it by accident? Were they given this information by somebody else? Was it part of an active search warrant and they accessed something that they weren't supposed to? The reason that I'm questioning it is because it comes into play for other things. If it was part of an active search warrant for the phone and the cops went through and they accessed something that they shouldn't have accessed, in this case, the conversation between the client, the parents, and the attorney, then that could call into question the entire search warrant and could get the rest of that thrown out. If the cops came across it by accident and they could prove that, it was an accident, they were searching her text messages for incriminating information, which was part of the search warrant, and they came across this by accident, then it could be a limited scope of what's thrown out. So context matters in this case.
Murder charge side of things, Courtney was charged with second-degree murder. When she first went into the judge,
should have been first
the legal
degree.
team pushed for a bond. They argued that she was not a flight risk and that she should be allowed to await trial out.
She's not a flight risk, bro. She left Florida and went to Hawaii almost immediately after unaliving her live-in boyfriend. No, she's a flight risk. There's no question.
Outside of jail. But the judge disagreed. She was denied bond and she's been behind
Good.
bars ever since. Over the next few months, though, more evidence started coming out. And through all of this, through the public hearings, the public statements, the video evidence, the parents' arrest, Courtney Clenny, she remained in jail. And by the time 2025 rolled around, Courtney Clenny had been in jail for more than 3 years. So her defense team tried again. In December, she was back in court asking the judge to reconsider bond. Her attorneys argued that she didn't have the money she once did. They said that she wasn't a flight risk and that she didn't pose a danger to the community. They told the court that if she was to be released, she would go back to Texas and live with her parents in BK. And prosecutors argued that the evidence presented by the defense did not change the situation and that Clenny should not be considered for bond. The judge also agreed.
She shouldn't. Just because she doesn't have the money doesn't mean her parents don't have the money. Doesn't mean other people doesn't have the money. There could be assets that she has that could be hidden away that law enforcement and the justice system has no idea about, that she could just very easily get out of jail and within a couple hours be on a private jet somewhere to a non-extradition country. Her parents could spirit her away, take her somewhere, hide her in the mountains. Like, I know some of this is a little far-fetched, but I mean, when it comes to their kids, parents will do whatever it takes to protect them. Like, I have a kid myself. I understand this. So, no. Especially with the fact that within, a couple weeks, couple days, month or two, whatever it was, after stabbing her boyfriend, she left and went to Hawaii. The judge made the right call in this case. Like, don't give her bond. You don't know if she truly is a flight risk or not.
Agreed with the state, and bond was denied yet again, which means, she has to wait in jail until her trial. But the December hearing did actually lead to a trial date. So the judge set the trial to begin on April 27, 2026. And prosecutors said they believe the case would take less than 2 weeks to present. So after years of legal back and forth, after motions, hearings, and privilege disputes, and public statements, this case finally has a clock on it. Spring of 2026. And I mean, honestly, the stakes could not be higher because if convicted, she could face life in prison. Her defense is still centered around the self-defense, but they also have pushed for the case to be considered manslaughter instead of second-degree murder. And the prosecution maintains that the evidence shows an intentional act, pointing again to the autopsy finding of a forceful downward thrust.
Why?
And that couldn't have just been made from a knife being thrown from 10 feet away. And I guess at this time, a jury will eventually decide, was this self-defense during a violent domestic dispute, or was it all intentional? And then, just as trial season was approaching, she walked into court last week and went viral once again, because this court appearance was for, I guess, her motions hearing ahead of the trial. So this wasn't her trial itself. This was one of those hearings where lawyers argue about what evidence the jury will and won't see. And before the proceedings even began, she started making faces at the people in the courtroom. And according to reporting from the hearing, Clenny was seen sticking out her tongue and puckering like she wanted someone's kiss. Like, again, ma'am, your life is on the line here. Why are you acting like this? But she's
acting like that because she's never been held accountable for her actions. She thinks this is all just a theatrical show, and at the end of it, she's going to get off and walk away, and that nobody's going to bat an eye. Nobody's going to come back after her. She's just an adult child. Like, she thinks she can do whatever she wants and going to get away with it regardless.
She's been in jail for more than 3 years. She's facing second-degree murder charges, and, you know, she could spend the rest of her life in prison, and this is what she's deciding to do. So, yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
But her defense team tried to strike down one of the prosecutor's expert witnesses, Dr. Michael Brandon, because apparently the issue is that Brandon had sued the defense proposed expert, Dr. Lenore Walker, for defamation more than 20 years ago. And the case...
So, the one expert witness sued the other expert witness 20 years ago for defamation. And what? They're saying that they took this case and agreed to become the expert witness for revenge? So, not only do you have the state and the defense going at it to decide the rest of the life of Courtney, but you also have the expert witnesses going at each other? Yo, why have I not looked this up before? This is great. This is just drama upon drama. Like, don't get me wrong. It's sad that Christian Abumseli had to lose his life for this to happen, you know, for it to come out. But, I mean, this trial is just pure drama.
Case was settled with an agreement that they would not personally malign with each other. And Walker testified that it would make her uncomfortable to remain involved if Brandon stayed in the case. Basically, the defense and the prosecution's star witnesses are fighting on top of everything else happening here. So, that makes this case even more interesting. But Brandon testified that there's no reason why both sides can't continue if everyone keeps it professional. But
exactly.
Judge Andrea Wolfson denied the defense's motion, and there was also a fight over recordings. Because prosecutors also want to introduce recordings that Christian Abumseli secretly made of Courtney before his passing. And the defense...
So when it comes to secret recordings made like this, it depends. What state were they made in? What were the laws? If it's a two-party consent state, then yes, the recordings are going to get thrown out. There's nothing that can be done about it. If it's a one-party consent state, then it doesn't matter. They can make recordings of you all they want. They can go ahead and post those recordings, use them in court proceedings, and there's nothing you can do about it. Like, I know where I live is a two-party consent state. I have to, even with the cameras hanging up in my house, I still have to inform people that, hey, when you enter my house, you are being video and audio recorded. If you're not comfortable with that, then, you know, you can't come in because I'm not shutting my cameras off.
Argued those recordings were illegal recordings and should be excluded. And Judge Wolfson ruled to exclude most of them, but we'll still see some of these secret recordings when the trial comes around. Because recordings made in the apartment's lobby and on the balcony can be used, ruling...
Yeah, it's your own house. You can record whatever the hell you want in your own house. There's no... So, if I understand it correctly, and if I don't, somebody can correct me on this, but people inside your own house have the same expectation of privacy as you would walking out in public. Meaning, you in your own house have more expectations of privacy from the outside. But if somebody would come into your house and, you know, like a friend or your wife or, you know, your kids, whatever, they should have the same expectation of privacy as if they were walking down the street.
There was no reasonable expectation of privacy in those areas.
Exactly.
So apparently, some of that audio will also be played for a jury.
I'm actually not having a good day. We're actually literally
I want to kill you, but you don't take me seriously.
So her trial is set to begin on
Yeah,
April
she's
27,
screwed.
2026. 12 people will be asked to decide whether this was self-defense in a volatile relationship or whether this was an intentional act. And honestly, when you're about to ask 12 strangers to believe you were terrified for your life, blowing kisses in court doesn't really seem like the best idea. So, hey, this will be interesting to see how it all plays out. But until then, I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. I am back with daily uploads again. I took a break after all my traveling, but I have so much content that's stacked up.
All right, we're gonna end that video there, but yeah, this is something that I'm definitely looking forward to keeping my eyes on. This should turn out to be a good trial. It should definitely, you know, it's gonna be interesting to see how this plays out. In my honest opinion, she's guilty. There's no self-defense. It should be, I personally believe it should be first-degree murder. With the recordings that are coming out and how she is acting, even in court, blowing kisses, doing stuff like that, I absolutely think it should be first-degree murder. It shouldn't be manslaughter, second degree, but we'll have to wait to see how the trial plays out. I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on this and seeing how it goes. I appreciate you guys watching. Please remember to hit that like button, that subscribe button, leave a comment down below. Also, feel free to let me know what videos you guys are interested in so I can get some of those up to react to those. Also, don't forget to check out my other channel, which I will have linked down below. That is a gaming channel. I would appreciate you guys' support over there as well. And I'll catch you all in the next video.